don't smoke crack, motherfucker, I sell it.
Welcome back, y'all. This is the Miscellaneous Minds Podcast. I'm your host, Jesus Dinero, here with my co-host,
Puma El Gato.
What we got going on tonight, my man?
We have our final look at David Benavidez versus David Morrell this Saturday night. Let's break it down.
Listen, we got the battle of the Davids over here, David Morrell versus David Benavidez. And listen, the one thing that I'm going to put and my final pick is going to be David Benavidez. And the reason he's my final pick is because, listen, I think David Morrell is extremely talented. I think David Morrell doesn't get enough of the credit that he should get. But the one thing that David Benavidez has is he's faced higher level talents. The Caleb Plants of the world, the Boo Boos of the world, and so on. Those are all people that I would consider very high up on my list as far as talented fighters. Now, don't get me wrong, with Boo Boo, I do think he hasn't lived up to his greatness, his career, but he is talented. That being said, he stopped him. David Benavidez stopped Boo Boo. And he went to a decision with Caleb Plant, but man, was it a hard-fought fight. At any moment in time, Caleb Plant could have gone down, but, you know, shout out to Caleb Plant. He stuck it out. He has a lot of heart, and he made it all the way to the end. But nonetheless, David Benavidez won. I think there's a number of different factors that are going to go in the benefit column for David Benavidez. The fact that he throws combos, the fact that he's good at picking his spots when it comes to picking those combos. He lands them perfectly. David Morrell is a slick fighter, but at the same time, he makes some errors when he's being the aggressor, which would leave him open, which would be a perfect time for David Benavidez to lay down those combos. Now, the one way that David Morrell can win the fight is if he chooses to do the, what I call it the Mayweather strategy, 1-2 punch, duck out, run around the ring a little bit, 1-2 punch, duck out, run around the ring a little bit. He can play that game, and with that, he could potentially win the fight, but I don't think anybody would give him any props for that. And as long as David Benavidez stays the aggressor the whole night, if that's the way that David Morrell chooses to fight, David Benavidez is still going to end up taking the W simply because I feel like that aggressiveness, he's still going to catch him here and there. Maybe not perfectly, but he'll catch him enough. I think it'll be enough for David Benavidez to pull out the W. Now, I'd like to see a good, nice, clean fight. David Benavidez is obviously known for those combinations, and David Morrell is known for good, effective aggressiveness. So I'd like to see that really come to pass. You know, I like to see them dudes get in there and duke it out. I'm not the biggest fan of slick fighters, people going in and out. That's not really my forte. But listen, David Morrell can definitely pull it in that direction. But it'll be interesting to see what they both decide to do. You know, they both talk a lot of shit to each other, and I respect that because I do like to see a little bit of animosity. I want you to sell me on the fight. And I do believe that David Benavidez really does get annoyed by some of David Morrell's antics. I don't think David Morrell gets as annoyed by David Benavidez. David Morrell seems like a lot more cool, calm customer. But I do think that David Benavidez definitely feels a little bit of that annoyance by David Morrell. So that's going to add a little bit more fire to David Benavidez, and that's why, apart from the combinations, apart from the aggressiveness, apart from the better talent, those are all the reasons why I think collectively David Benavidez is going to take the W. I think that combination of those things is going to be the kryptonite for David Morrell. I think somewhere along the 6th, 7th, maybe 8th round, David Benavidez is going to be proved to be a little much in the sense of he's going to be landing more and more. And I think at that point, it's going to slowly start to wear down a David Morrell. I do think it's going to go to decision. I think David Morrell is slick enough to where he can make it out until the very end. But I do think it's going to be a unanimous decision win for David Benavidez. You know, I could see it a majority decision, but that's the lowest I'll go. It's going to be an interesting fight. But what do you think about that, my man?
Like you said earlier in your prediction, the tagline for this would be David versus David, but I do think this is more along the lines of David versus Goliath. Goliath obviously would be David Benavidez. Again, he has much more of a heavier fight resume. He's got much more experience, better combinations, better power. David Morrell definitely would have more of the youth and more of the, I guess, fresher resiliency than would a Dave Benavidez, but I feel like everything else that Dave Benavidez has in his repertoire, I think it would be massive hill for David Morrell to climb, and this would be much more of a underdog fight for David Morrell than would Dave Benavidez. Again, Dave Benavidez would actually be the titan in this matchup, which again, it's kind of obvious. He's the Mexican monster for a reason. Like we kind of know what fight we're gonna be here for. I do think this fight would be kind of more reminiscent of the Canelo versus Edgar Berlanga matchup. Edgar Berlanga in that matchup, again, he had a lot of ferocity, a lot of energetic youth, whereas Canelo was much more the experienced veteran, giving much more of the, I guess, showing them the ropes and giving much more of Canelo exhibition, and Edgar Berlanga getting I guess, the more frustrated end in that. I do think it's going to be a lot more flashier than that Edgar Berlanga fight. I do think Dave Benavidez is going to show much more of his exhibition than Canelo did in that fight. I expect at least a knockdown, probably 5th, 6th round. Dave Morrell is going to get knocked down. I'm calling it as a prediction. I don't think it's going to be a knockout per se, but I do think at the very least the knockout's going to be called in the 5th or 6th round. For the entire matchup, I do think I agree with you. The decision for Dave Benavidez seems like the much more likelier scenario, unanimous decision. By the way, it's going to be an absolute flashy fight, or at least I expect it to be an absolute flashy fight. The anger that both men have exhibited in the press conferences leading up to it, honestly, it's gotten me all hyped over this match. I absolutely cannot wait for this matchup.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a great fight. A lot of fireworks, a lot of good things to look forward to. Both of these dudes come aggressively, one more so than the other. The other one's a little bit more slick, more picks his spots, but in a very aggressive type manner. So I think it'll be good. I think it's going to be a fireworks-filled fight. I'm sure a lot of you guys will be watching it. We'll definitely be watching it, and it'll definitely be a good experience to have. And with that, make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and
Until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you in the next one.